all together. Well, we here in Wellington, we are just about to make our first step into technology, just about to have a Zoom call, and fingers are crossed. If things don't go well, we will play a song and we will be speaking with Bev on the phone. Bev Adair-Beets, as a publicist, booking and artist manager, and an event producer, has worked with some of the biggest names in the music industry, including international stars such as Mick Fleetwood of Fleetwood Mac, Ricky Martin, and Janet Jackson, as well as our own homegrown stars such as Stan Walker, Tammy Nelson, The Levites, Daniel Bedingfield, Sarah Jane, Olivia Foai, and Tomorrow People, to name a few. Bev's passion is for the rangatahi, the young people, and for 25 years she has worked with children and their families and continues to be a child and youth advocate in New Zealand and Australia. She is the spokesperson for Family First New Zealand on child and youth neglect issues. Bev Adair-Beets has shared her own story of childhood abuse and neglect, speaking in prisons, high schools, and youth organizations, and anywhere where she believes she can make a difference. Bev is on Zoom with us now. Talofa lava, Bev, and thank you very much for making time to have a chat with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! We have Zoom for the first time ever from Wellington.
Yay!
Oh, thank you so much. Now, I follow you on Facebook, and I know how exciting a life you have, mixing with all these stars, these music stars. But we'll come to that later in our interview. First of all, your own story, and this is probably where you get your love of the rangatahi from. Your own childhood story is a harrowing one, Bev.
Yes. I certainly wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Yes, and it is that abuse as a child, being brought up in a family home full of violence, full of all sorts of abuse, that has given you this passion for our youth. You believe so much in our youth.
Yes, I do, because everybody needs somebody to believe in them, and I just know that every child is born for a reason and a purpose. We just need to find their walker to help them find their purpose in life. And they need good more alongside them to help reach the purpose and the dream in their hearts.
Yes, the first time we met was when you were involved in the Divas tour, which 531PI put together last year. But you have been involved in this industry. Why the music industry for you?
Well, to be honest, it started with people, and it's always about people. It just started with my local church cleaning toilets. And then meeting somebody who was using our venue, who was a professional in the industry, and I ended up being her gopher, and I learned a lot of things. But it was really people driven. We needed to have a band, we needed to have singers, and I knew nothing about it, so I had to work out how to. So I went and got myself taught so that I could actually make it happen, because we had lots of young people that were my passion, but nobody knew what they were doing. So I decided to find out, and it's been evolving but the whole thing has been what I call cause driven. It's because our young people needed somebody who knew what they're doing, and there wasn't anybody, so I had to find out. And then I discovered, because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, between, for me, God and Mr. Google, I had to trust that he had a reason and a purpose in my own life. So I just people needed help. I needed to know how to get them the right help. And then I just started I just started like that, really. There was a need. I love the people concerned, so I needed to find out what that meant. And the doors have opened as I have grown in my skill and whatever I've needed from sound, lighting, AV, how does the band get set up, how do you do things, run the shoots. And I mean, that's exactly how it started in my local church. And when I went to the pastor there and I said, you know how we turn up and nobody knows what they're doing? I've discovered this thing called a run sheet. Can I try that here? And so they let me try it. And we discovered it really, really worked. And then it grew like that. More and more people came to use the venue. So my skill level grew. And the doors just opened as I was doing what was in my hand to do. And I was really trusting God the whole way. And I really wanted to make sure that the young people and the people who were in my world were looked after and cared for. And so, so from there, I just happened to, a band came in, and then I got a call a couple of days later. Could you do what you do? At that time, I just called it beving. I didn't have any official or whatever skills. They said, Bev, could you just do your beving? And it was parachute music. And so I worked in, I looked after the artists and things like that at Parachute for 8 years. And then different people like Pat Massetti at the time for Youth Alive and Christine Kane said, Bev, you're good at organising and you love youth. Could you do Youth Alive? And then I got a call from Get Smart New Zealand, and then different churches asked me if I would come and organise their events. And of course, I always talk young people and people that I've been training along with me with that. And then in '92, I was with, it was still called beving. I didn't even know what administration was. Where I came from, I had no education. I was not brought up to know any of that, really, to be honest. And so people used to use all these big long words around me, and I'd have to go and look at the dictionary on what they actually were talking about. But I was in this particular event. It was a lot of people, and somebody must have known what I did. And they said, well, could you just do Bev? And I went, okay, what does that mean? And it happened to be Good Bibles in Willow Creek. And at the end of that conference, they approached me and said, you know what you just did here, could you do that for us? And the rest was history. Next week I was in Chicago, and then it just grew to 12 countries. And then it was, different people with XAir. They said, oh, could you look at this? And there was Tony Hall. It all evolved. I didn't actually go knocking. It was all about the people, and they saw something in me. And so I guess that's what I've done the last 20 years. I try and see what's in other people, and I try and help them build the right kind of structure around them and systems and processes and that will help them do what I didn't have around me, basically.
Amazing. What an amazing journey.
Even with Janet Jackson, somebody said, how the heck did that happen? I went, you know what, all I can say to you honestly is when God determines that there is a pathway for you, regardless of anything, regardless of people getting in your way or doors shutting, or for me, my own lack of confidence and my self-esteem, which I've really struggled with most of my life. I had to trust that if he's opened the door, he must equip me with it. So the people said, everybody's vying for that, but because I had helped somebody in one of her dances, and then I happened to be there when somebody needed picking up, and I just said, no, I'll drop you. It doesn't really matter. I've got some time. It just happened to be her assistant. And then when I dropped everybody off, I had no idea who was in the van, because I don't actually follow artists and people like that. And then I just went to park the van, and I was just doing my work while I was waiting for others to be picked up. And a tap on the door, and they said, are you Bev Adair? And I went, yes, I am. And because I've worked with the twins, I don't know whether you've heard of Lay Twins, but they are the only men dancers with Beyonce, but I had times with them in Las Vegas. And so my name was brought up as somebody, well, for them, they said trustworthy. And she was the real deal and straight up. And so they said, are you Bev? Yes. Miss Jackson would like to speak with you. And that's how I got in there. I'd really like you to say, because I'm just the best and I'm just so cool. But it's really just doing what I've done it with my hands, and I've done it to the best that I know how, trusting God, and then if I didn't know, I would go and find out how I was meant to do it, because at the end of the day, for every door I opened meant another door for another young person that I could open for as they aspired for what they wanted to do. And that's been the whole reason for everything you see I do. If it doesn't open a door for a rangatahi, a young person, to realise their dream or help them with their purpose in life, then I say no. So I'm pretty much a cause-driven person with everything that you see. There's a reason why I'm there, and mostly it's to build bridges and great relationships of integrity, so that I can trust them with every young person going through it.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Now, given your childhood and your upbringing, all of that abuse, having to live in 17 foster homes, you could easily have followed that trajectory to its ultimate conclusion, but
Yes.
you chose a different path. How important was the crossroads when you found God in your life?
Massive, massive. I have to say that massive. Honestly, by the time I was 18, I honestly thought I should be shot. I should just stand in front of that truck. My life had no value. I was beaten sexually and mentally and emotionally beaten to the extent that I didn't even know who I was. All I knew was I was a filthy, dirty Māori girl, because that's what I'd been told all my life, and that I was only there to be used and abused, and I had no value whatsoever. I really didn't think I did. I thought I was a thing. I didn't even know I was a human being, to be honest, because mostly I was there as somebody's slave, just used by the men. And I'd never heard anything but that. And you've got to understand, when you've been through massive abuse, especially emotional, let alone sexual, but you go into your hiding place just to survive. People have no comprehension what that is, but I do. And on April 15th, 1973, you know what, can I just tell you, I'm not sure what they would do with somebody like me. I didn't have any religious upbringing as such. I didn't know anything like that. But when I was in my room, it was just like this impression in my room was like, my daughter, I'm calling you home. I hear that voice in my head on this very second, as clear as I did back then. It kind of freaked me out a little bit, because I didn't understand. I thought something was wrong with me. But anyway, I knew a friend who went to church type things, and so ran and said, look, I need to find out what is God, and what is all of this. I cut a long story short, I went to a church, and you got to understand, I didn't know what a pastor or minister or anything like that was, so I was looking for the man in charge, because I thought that's what you did. I just wanted the boss, so he could tell me. And anyway, I found him, and he told me they were too busy, and I'd have to make a meeting for them next week. And I said, I just want to know about God. Just tell me about God. And he said, well, no, we're a bit busy. You'll need to come next week. And oh no, he told me I have to do it today. So I went out of there, and I walked up the top of Queen Street and I looked in. There was a building, and I didn't salute all that, because it was a church and whatnot. And there was a man, because I was looking for somebody with a white collar. I thought that's what a Christian was. They wore white collars and black things, because that's the only picture I'd seen. And there at the end of it's like this building, when I looked, there was a man standing down the end, and he had a white collar. So I just trotted in, and I walked all the way up. And there he was standing at the front. I didn't know he was a sermon, or there were people sitting in the church. I had no idea. I just looked at him, and I went, excuse me. And he was amazing, to be honest, because he just looked at me and he went, can I help you? And I went, I need to know about this God. Please, can you help me? You got one of those white collars, so you must know. And he did. He told, I've still got the little Bible, and that was April 15th, 1973. And I have to say very clearly to you that afternoon, that time. I still have the Bible. I read for the very first time in my life that I was loved. I'd never seen the word love around me at all, ever. It was just something that went to my heart when I read in the Bible. There were the words that were just popping out at me like, you're born for a purpose and you're loved. And I went, what does that word mean? And so it's been a real, but that moment, that day, I can't explain it to anybody. Many people have tried, but I just can't explain it to you. But that day, he became my mum, my dad, my nana, and my papa. And he is the only family I know, to be truthful. It's only been 8 years since, I think it's since my mother, I met my mum, and she passed away. And up until then, and I met 10 brothers and sisters, and I had never seen a photo of myself before I was 15 years old until then. So
Amazing, amazing.
you know, God became my mum, dad, nana. He became my whole world, and not from that second. And from there, I was in a wheelchair for 2 years. They told me I could never walk again. I have faced tremendous lots of things since then. But you know what? He has not failed me. He's given me a life beyond my wildest imagination, and I have he's my absolute strength. Any good that people see is because he has loved me into this person that I've actually got to I've actually got to like me and love me. And that's the biggest miracle of my life. And I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't do life without him. I couldn't do life without him. He's still the one secure person. He's not only like my dad, he's my God and he's my deliverer. He's my strength, and he has opened doors, taken me around the world, and put me in situations. That's why I know with a young person, I don't need anybody to believe the same as me. I don't. I just know who I believe in, and I know where my strength is. But I do know that if you place your hand in his, do what's in your hand, you can have a life and you can have an amazing life. But for me, I want our rangatahi, our young people, to embrace, first of all, they are each born for a purpose, that there is a reason that they're here. And right now, maybe their parents, just like mine, didn't know how to love me like I needed to be loved. I mean, my dad went to jail. And yes, there's been many things like, why wasn't I worth them fighting for me? Why did our family have to be like once were warriors? Why did I have to live with shame all my life until God took that off me? That was all my fault, that I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't valued enough to be cared for. But God cared for me. So
amazing,
that
amazing.
strength in my world.
Amazing testimony, Bev. Unfortunately, we're quickly running out of time. But as I sit here listening to you and your story, you know, in the industry, a lot of our people are out in front of the stage, but a lot of the people behind the stage are men, and a lot of them are white. You are a woman with a heart, and you are Maori. Has that made a difference in terms of our own artists opening their doors to you?
Oh yes, definitely, and we need to embrace our cultures. It's very, very, very important that our culture is embraced, and all our young people need to be proud of their culture. And there's so much, and we need to keep it and bring it into every area. We don't leave it at the door, because that's who we are. We are Māori, we are Polynesian, and we bring a uniqueness to the scene and to the music and the dance industry. And we need to secure that more. And you know what? Behind the doors, we need a lot more brown people. And I have a mission about that, because our Polynesian artists, and there's a lot of them, it's true. And just because we learn differently doesn't make us slow, and it doesn't make us unintelligent, which is a message that really, really bugs the life out of me. And so part of my wish for me is to be that bridge between what I call the white management and our cultural, because we need to have more of our culture. Just because we do different things doesn't mean our delivery is any less. And in actual fact, we've got more nous in our little fingers than a lot of people, but we are not given the platform. And I honestly believe that we need, for the sake of our up and coming, is that we need to have more Polynesian and Māori in these places of power, because it doesn't matter how much people talk, there is a way that we as Polynesian people do things, and it's not below what is meant to be. That is an absolute myth that needs to be struck on the foot, because there are cultural leaders that know how to lead us as our people, and there is a way of doing it, and it is a positive way. And I think I am hoping and I'm praying and I'm doing all I can to get more of us in. Right now, it has been you've got to understand that 90% plus of what I've been involved in, I'm usually the only woman, let alone a brown woman. But I'm seeing it more and more in our artists, and we're reaching heights around the world with our gifts, but it's not recognised in the places that it should. I would like to see more of our people in places of power in our industry. We do not have enough, and it doesn't matter how empathetic people are towards how we process things. There is a way that a Polynesian leader does that is totally acceptable to the rest of us, and we don't have to, we'll say something in like a contract and a process and a system. And just because we may do it slightly different, because that's how we are wired, doesn't make it any less. And there's a myth out there that it isn't done, what I call in a white man's structure. And please, I'm not a racist. I've been called that for saying that statement. But when I've had worked along Samoan leadership, and I've had the privilege of working with a lot, even American Indians leadership around the world, Aboriginal, there is a way that is respectful, and there is a way that it's done that keeps the mana of what we're trying to achieve. And we just need those doors to be open.
Wonderful, Bev. Thank you so much, Bev. Unfortunately, we are now out of time officially. It is news time for our Tongan community. We thank God for you, Bev. What an amazing service you have done for our communities. And we look forward to seeing so much more of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're listening to Early Edition with Ete on your station 531 PI, bringing Pacific people together. Our news in Tongan now, and then